Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Noise, where we do everything we can to get past the surface information and allow people to have a real understanding of the topics that we talk about and to walk away with some information and some logic away from our feelings and misunderstanding. Look, I'm excited about being here today. This is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time. But before we get into that, I have to introduce the round-faced Mexican girl. Grace-O, what's going on today? How you doing?
Nothing. I think I broke the mic.
So you come in here, you just get the tan stuff up. Been in here 5 minutes and then the tan stuff
I just
up.
moved it because you guys are always telling me I'm not loud enough.
Well, all right. Well, pick up the volume. Pick up the volume. Hey, we are really, really excited about being here today. Like I said previously, and before I get into the topic, I want to discuss something that was brought to my attention today. I am a alum of Texas Christian University, and I am a proud alum of Texas Christian University. And as I was brushing my teeth earlier, actually getting ready to come over here, I got 3 or 4 text messages that ask, have you seen the story about TCU? Have you seen the story about Gary Patterson? So I got a chance to look at it, and evidently there's a linebacker, a young cat who just came in, who had been there not too long. I think he was a redshirt freshman last year. And evidently there was the use of the N-word. It stated that Gary had used the N-word. Now, I want to address just a couple of things. Now, I went to TCU in '97. Gary got there in '98. I've known Coach Patterson since '98 to now. How many years is that? 22, 23 years? I have nothing to gain or to lose in my statements, but I think it's important that we be fair. Now, I read the story, and the story, although statements are statements and it looks a little fact, there are some facts there, I need people to understand that the story itself that we saw online is missing some truths. Now, I think it's important that in today's climate that us as adults, because as I read the story and I see the comments that the kid made and the text message or the message that the kid put out on Twitter and all the comments beneath with people who voice their opinion loudly and aggressively, and everybody has that opportunity to do so. I think it's important that us as adults, grown-ups, before we get to firing darts, let's find out what target we're supposed to be aiming at. Because I am not here to defend or offend. If, and allegedly there was and probably was, I don't know, and I'm not going to say it was or wasn't, but according to the story, there was the use of the N-word in context by Gary. Now, I don't know, but I will say this. I can call him a lot of things, but racist, prejudice, or using words to offend or oppress because of color or race is something Gary is not and would not ever be and would not do. I'm not saying that because he's a white male at my university. I'm saying that because the man that I know doesn't live in that world. And I also know the context and the understanding of the story. Now, if anybody has anything to say about, well, he shouldn't use that word, absolutely right, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about context, we're talking about the protection of your players in your school, and we're talking about one statement seen made by one player, and we're taking it as whole truth. Because I always say, I don't like to talk about things I don't know about. Trust me that I think it's important that everybody who has an opinion lead with logic and fact before voicing your opinion, or else in a couple of days you just turn around and you look stupid. So, with that said, Coach P, we got your back. I love my university. You're a great coach. And I know that prejudice, racism, or oppression, or offending because of color is something that is not a category I could ever place you in, and that's coming from a black male from Mississippi who was fussed at by Gary for 4 years in a row, and he said a whole lot of things to me that I didn't agree with, but never once were any of them racist. So everybody reading these stories and jumping on bandwagons, before you get on buses or bandwagons, know what direction it's going. I encourage everybody to do so. With that being said, Coach P, go Frogs. Now, I have the young, beautiful, vibrant, 31-year-old attorney at law. She practices law and she got her master's degree from Texas A&M University. She has her undergrad degree at the University of San Diego. We are talking about Montgomery, Alabama's own Miss Desiree Day. How are you today, young lady?
Doing great, thank you.
Excellent. Now, we're going to jump right into it. Okay. This young lady is here for all of us. So everybody on the show today, we're talking about financial literacy. Now, for all of you stock market gurus and all of you people who understand how banks work, we ain't talking to y'all. We're talking to people like me who just found out how savings accounts work, who just found out banks sell money. So I want you to break this down to where a 5-year-old could have fun with a block set, understanding how credit works. So Desiree, tell me about your time at Texas A&M. We're going to start with you passing the bar. We're going to work backwards. How many people were in that program?
Yeah, so there was about 42 people in the part-time Texas A&M Law School class that I was in.
How many of them were sisters?
4.
4, and you passed the bar. So 42 out of 4. Mm-hmm. Okay, you passed the bar. What does that mean? The moment you pass the test, mm-hmm. What does that mean?
So that allows for you to practice the law and represent people in the court of law.
So you can't practice mm-hmm. until you pass the bar, stating you have learned everything you need to know in order to functionally continue to learn more and practice your art or the science of law.
Exactly.
Okay, so for all of my coaches, teachers, instructors, personal trainers, lawyers, doctors, and anything of the sort, as I said on a show before, you gotta learn before you practice. Mm-hmm. How long were you practicing? I mean, how long did it take you to learn before they even allowed you to take the test to practice?
So law school is 3 years, but since I was in the evening program, non-traditional student, it usually will take 4 years, going mm-hmm. just at nights, but I actually did it in 3.5, so.
And then you were in your undergrad for how long?
4 years.
So it took you 7.5 years to practice the thing you're doing now. Fantastic. Yeah. All right, what kind of law are we practicing?
So right now I work for a corporation, a company, and so
what's the name of the company?
National Life Group. It's a life insurance and annuity company.
Gotcha.
And so with that, I actually don't practice law, but the arena that I'm in, my degree and my knowledge of law is at the forefront of what I do.
Perfect. And so how does that lead into the understanding of finances, money, credit, mm-hmm. Insurances?
Yeah.
How does that tied into law? Because when people hear law, we think criminal, or we think civil, or we think defense attorney.
Exactly.
And then we get to thinking things like got plaintiff, and then so then I even get to thinking about it. What my mama used to watch on TV.
Law and Order, SVU.
Yeah, so, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So I'd like to say that just because, you go to law school, not everyone goes and practices criminal law or becomes a DA or prosecutor. It's actually a very beautiful career path because of that. It's very expansive, and some people go into private practice, some people go into the corporate world, some people become compliance officers. Like, there's such a spectrum that just because you have that degree, you have a lot of access to. And my path was more so financial services, just because that's what I started my career in.
So you did it because that's where you started and that's where you wanted to continue, mm-hmm. or that was a passion of yours?
No, so I actually completely stumbled upon this career path by complete accident.
Really?
So initially, when I moved to Texas, my plan was to work as a paralegal mm-hmm. and go to law school and then become a lawyer in the traditional sense, where I would be a litigator or something like that. But I actually got a job working for National Life Group on their sales desk. And so I was actually, helping agents that were appointed with the company sell our products and become accumulated to the financial industry.
Really?
Yeah, so
you sell money too?
I help people solve.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
And so, with that, it really just, it's still law was a passion of mine, and I'm like, I don't really want to give that up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really looking for a way to stay in the financial industry, but at the same time be able to use law background,
Okay.
foundation.
What does that mean? So when we say the financial industry,
Mm-hmm.
and I need everybody to understand at a level of almost as if we're learning first grade English or
Yeah.
even Spanish as a second language.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, so when people say financial literacy, it is a very expansive, I look at it as a big umbrella,
Okay.
where a bunch of things can fall under it, right? So everything from, learning about debt, learning about investments, learning about how to budget. So everything would be considered financial literacy. What in your, finances will make you, better
Okay.
for your financial future. And so for me, the financial industry encompasses all of that. It just depends on what area you're working on. So
Yeah. So let's start at a foundational start.
yes.
So let's say I'm an 18-year-old student at TCU,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm walking on the yard, and I'm just roaming around, not really paying attention to anything but the girls. And there are some desks, and at the desk are some pretty girls with credit cards. Now, this is a true story. So, I walk up to the desk with the credit cards, and I go about it the wrong way. What's the right way? Let's just start as an 18-year-old, and then I'm gonna start as a 30-year-old with a new job, and then we're gonna go all the way back to 5 years old.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm a college student on the yard, no money, my mama sends me money, I finally get a credit card. What we do,
Mm-hmm.
we sign up for that bad boy and get it in a week, and it's burned in a month.
Exactly.
What should we?
Yes. So
Wait, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna ask you again. Then, if we don't do that, we call our mama and, boy, you better leave them credit cards alone. Them credit cards ain't nothing but a problem, and they gonna get you in a lot of trouble.
exactly.
What should we do?
Yeah, so with credit cards in particular and being young, I think that combination is perfect for marketers and people that endorse these credit cards, because when you're young, the sky's the limit, right? You don't really have any responsibility. The only thing you're really worried about is what the new fashion is, or what you can do with your friends, and getting a burger or whatever, being able to have money to do that. And so even to me, to my 18-year-old self, I would say, hey, stop and think about, with all of this different advice and with all of this different technology and access to information, what can I do in my position now to set me up for where I want to go, right? And having a strong foundation and a sense of that,
Mm-hmm.
and in particular with how the decision I'm making today would affect what I'm trying to get to in my future. And maybe people don't even know what their future is, and that's the problem, right? And it's like, well, you have to take time to reflect and think about that.
What if we did it? Let me ask you this,
Mhm.
because that's a great statement. Because I was thinking when you were talking, like, some people don't actually know what they plan to do in the next hour,
Exactly.
let
They're
alone
just
the next,
there.
5 years.
Yeah.
But what if we go the other way? What if we said, what can I do to not put myself in a position
Yeah.
that I'm going to have to climb out of? Or how can I use this to my benefit?
Exactly.
And this is what today's show is about.
Mhm.
It's not about what to do or what not to do. It's understanding the options and then picking the one that makes sense.
That's exactly.
My whole life was either do this, when I say my whole life, but my financial life up until this point was either do this or do that, or you gotta do this and don't do that. Then usually when I made a bad decision, that's when I found out other options existed. So I would like for the audience, the moms, the dads, the ones that are putting money away for a college fund, or the ones that have a life insurance and they got term, and they don't know that they're on year 19, and then next year their term goes to 0. Like, what is a foundational step for understanding how not to find yourself climbing out of a hole?
The biggest thing, and I think it's something that people, I don't know if people are just afraid or they think they don't qualify, but find someone, a financial advisor, find someone that you can talk to, even if it's, even if you have $2 in the bank. Like, it's important to link with someone because, like you said earlier, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And to recognize that and be able to understand, like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing by getting this credit card, or I don't understand my options, what this person just quoted out to me. All I know is I have a $1,000 limit and I'm going to go spend it.
And all you have to do is pay the minimum.
Right. All you have to do is pay the minimum. And so I think it's important to get an understanding and know that, hey, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now, or I know there could be other options, and linking with someone that you trust, or contacting someone. There's plenty of advisors out there, plenty of people that will give free information to understand kind of what a plan for you and your situation looks like. One thing that you just said that was really good is that there's so many different directions, and people always want to say, you have to do this way or you have to do that way. The Susie Ormans of the world do not get that life insurance, right? That's what she preaches. But it's like, you have to understand and gather all the information, decide what is best for you in your situation.
Okay. So with that being said, if there is a foundational start point for somebody who has $1 million or no dollars, what's the most important thing they should understand in order to stay out of a situation you can't get out of? Because here's what I've learned, ladies and gentlemen. Once you dig that hole, you don't even have to fall in it. You stand next to it, and it'll pull you in it, and it's hard to get out of it. So instead of us relying on hope and wishes and gifts or lottery, how do we avoid that, maintain and stabilize our ability to live comfortably without feeling like we got to make $1 million to do so? What would be the foundational, if you're in first grade, what would you tell people?
Foundationally, budget.
I knew you were going to say that. Now, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means creating what I call an assets and liabilities chart with my people that I work with. But
what's an asset?
An asset is what you're bringing in. What's going to be that amount that you're earning, basically. So what you're bringing in the house.
The asset is the positive. It's what
the deposit.
It's payday is the asset.
Exactly.
Or like owning land is an asset.
Exactly.
Is a car an asset?
It can be.
Okay.
Yeah.
She can't tell you. A car is not an asset. A car is a liability, unless you're selling cars and then they're assets.
Well, if it's paid off.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So an asset is the thing that has a positive value.
Exactly. Yes.
So what's a liability?
A liability is what's going to cost you.
Okay, and that's in life.
That's bills. That's that car note. Yeah, exactly what we're talking about. So any credit card debt.
Yeah. So how do we budget? So what's the first step to budget, and how do we teach our kids to budget?
Yeah. So the first step to budget is realizing what you have coming in, that asset.
So counting your dollars.
Counting your dollars. Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
Or every week, or every check.
Exactly.
Okay.
Next step would to be list out those liabilities. So what are your bills on a monthly basis? What do you have going out? Making sure that you have a realistic account, and making sure that when you're creating that budget, when you have all of those liabilities written, I always tell people schedule in or pencil in a liability for that fun time. That going out, going to the movies, whatever it is that you want to have as that fun time, and stick to that. Because where people get into a lot of trouble is that they'll be like, okay, those are my monthly bills, but I also want to go and do this and this and this, and that's fine, but you do it to access, and then all of a sudden you have a negative in your bank account at the end of the month, and you're living from paycheck to paycheck. So being realistic with your budget is important.
So let's be fair and not start at zero, because nobody in the room is starting at, I just got a job and I have no bills. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So some of us are starting at negative 50,000 or negative 50 or negative 500.
Yeah.
So how do we balance that or methodically get to creating an opportunity to keep a dollar every month?
Yeah, so one of the methods that I found has been very powerful is starting so that it's not overwhelming to you, to start with the lowest balance liability, right? So if you have $50,000 worth of debt overall, and let's say 20,000 of that's your car, another portion is student debt, whatever, and then you have 5,000 in credit cards. That's your lowest amount.
So explain debt.
Debt, yes. So debt is the how do I break this down?
Well, give us the difference between an expense
Yeah.
and debt or liability. Give us explain expense and then the difference between debt and expenses.
Yeah, so expenses I would say are something that's reoccurring.
Like
Probably
electric bill.
Right, on a monthly basis.
Mortgage.
Bills, mortgage, exactly.
Is the mortgage and the car an expense, or is it a debt or liability? Because you can pay them both off. The way I categorize this is if the pay date ends, it's debt.
Yeah.
If I need it all the time, it's an expense.
Yeah.
Like toilet paper is an expense.
Exactly.
You see, I gotta buy. I hate buying it, but I gotta buy it. But my car is debt.
Yeah.
Like if I end up
Deadweight.
finding $15,000, I'm not paying off my car.
Exactly.
Because I pay my expenses first because I need it. So I wanted to break that difference down.
Yeah.
So when people have that, because everybody has electricity, everybody has a phone, like everybody has groceries. So what should we put in the budget?
So what goes in the budget, I would say, are those what do we call them? The reoccurring liabilities. So what you said, when the paycheck ends, you still need those things. So that definitely goes in the budget because those are things that you can't really live without. I guess the needs versus the wants. So you'll put your needs in the budget first, and then kind of schedule out what those wants or those extra debt liabilities would be.
Coming from a different perspective, so I guess like a younger generation, my parents were not good at like doing budgets. Does it have to be something fancy?
No.
I'm sure some people are asking that. Like I know that to them it sounds like there has to be spreadsheets or it has to look a certain type of way. Like what is the most basic way to start in the right direction?
The Truebill app.
Yeah, that's a good
to let the world know, the Truebill app might be the best thing as far as budgets go on Earth. It tells you exactly how many dollars you spend, exactly how many dollars you got coming in. It warns you when there's a large transaction. Like for anybody who's looking to understand what their budget looks like, Truebill, the app for Truebill is really, really helpful. So you don't have to be an accountant to have a budget.
Exactly. And also, it's as simple as a T-chart, right? I say make a T-chart, put what your total income is coming in from that month on the right side, put your assets on the left side, put your liabilities, and do that every month until, you know what I mean? It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be extravagant. It can be custom to you and what your situation is.
So the first step is budget.
Budget.
To me, the second step is keep money.
Yeah.
So how do you keep money outside of the budget? Like how do you, keep money before you start saving money or letting the money do stuff? So for example, keeping money is I still got money at the end of the month. I don't need these shoes. I want these shoes, so I'll wait another month. So now, if I had $50, now I got $100. I can go spend $30 and I got $70. So I'm always on the up and up. That's to me, that's keeping money.
Yeah.
Many of us keep money by just not buying stuff we need.
Right.
Also, you don't have to spend money on stuff that you need either. I mean, not all the time. You can eat for free a lot of the times if you want to, or you can squeeze things down or turn your air conditioner up just a little bit. That's how you keep money.
Yeah.
So how do you save money?
So there's multiple vehicles.
What's the best vehicle for somebody who's never saved a dime? You have a savings account, but you got access to it.
Yeah.
So you ain't saving no money, You got a CD, but you can't wait for it to come out, almost like a rap CD. You get, in 2 years up, you go get that little $18 you got off of it, and now you're ready for the world. How do you save money effectively?
That's a good question.
How would you suggest some options?
So,
I told you I was going to smart.
I know. So, I always say you have to start with, making sure that you have at least 6 months of expenses in the bank. When you save.
But what if you have zero?
Right. You're building that up, but what vehicle? I mean, for me, I would typically save in a savings account,
Mm-hmm.
but to your point, you have access to it. But I mean, there's things you can do. Get a savings account where you can't access, or you have
So
to
they
actually
have
travel.
those?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
so one trick that I used to use was get a savings account at a bank that was completely separate. So if I needed money from that account, I would have to drive to that bank.
I would have to go do stuff.
I have to
that.
do it, and that was a motivator for me. That okay, I don't need those pair of shoes that bad. I'm not going to go and get them.
So stash it.
Stash it.
Stash money. That makes sense. Stash it.
Were you?
Okay. That makes sense to me. So let's go backwards.
Okay.
Okay. You're practicing law.
Mm-hmm.
Before you did that, you were going to school in California.
Yep.
What was your undergrad?
Political science, my degree.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because I wanted to go to law school.
So you always wanted to be in this space?
Yeah.
Even as a country girl in Alabama. What do you remember about Alabama?
I remember vaguely my grandma's house, but I was 6. So.
I'm asking that to ask you this. What kind of influences did you have? Who was pushing you in this direction? Because a lot of us were taught what our parents were taught and what their parents were taught. Work hard, save your money, make sure you work it long enough to get the retirement, this, that, and the other. And that's not a bad way to live.
Yeah.
But the world is moving so fast now, and there's so many different ways to make money, stash money, do these different things.
Yeah.
Who influenced you, who pushed you in this direction to have conversations about financial literacy, or are there business owners in your family, are there accountants in your family? Where did this come from?
No, that's a great question. So my aunt, who was actually the youngest out of all of my mom's siblings, was a CPA. And her job was to actually go around to banks and audit them. And so I would go and spend summers in DC with her, and then when she moved to Atlanta, I would spend some time with her and just kind of being around her and how her mind works and just delving into what she decided to do that as a career, and kind of, I guess, osmosis, it kind of translated over to me and being interested in learning how to budget and making sure I was good with money.
So were you just paying attention, or was she giving you the game?
She was giving me good advice.
She was giving you the game. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were just sitting there making it all make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you made a career out of it.
Yeah, but it's still by complete accident because
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I did not imagine I would be in financial services at all.
Okay.
I am going to be completely transparent. I failed econ twice in college. So I was like, I am staying away from numbers. That's why I went to law school. I did not go to math school. I wanted to stay away completely from numbers. I would literally change classes in undergrad if it involved math.
If it was anything about math.
Bad.
Yeah.
It was bad, which is funny because in high school I actually maxed out my math requirement. And so, but it never appealed to me. Yeah, it didn't make sense. And so, but when I moved to Texas, I actually ended up working for a small boutique financial services firm. Where I helped the individual that ran the firm. I helped her with her what she called her A and B clients. And so when she would sit down with them and get them nice and confused, I would have to come in as a 23-year-old and explain to these individuals that were 50 and above why they got what they got.
I know how that goes. I confuse everybody at PE, and then she has to explain to them what I mean, so it all works.
And so, right. And so for me, that was a very it was a very good learning curve, and it made me actually want to lean in that discomfort even more and realize that I was actually good at it. So I think that's what inspired a lot of me wanting to be in this industry and continue that. And
so your drive comes from your curiosity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I can find anything interesting. It's just a matter of...
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from you. It's almost like, okay, you're talking about it. Let's see what this is all about. We have Desiree Day, 31-year-old attorney at law. She passed the bar, so now she practices. While many of y'all out there trying to learn, she's still out there practicing. We're talking about practice. I'm gonna practice. I'm so excited about it. Grace, so got any questions out there?
Yeah, actually, Sherry would like to know if you're familiar, what is your professional opinion about the various financial investment plans such as Forex, Bitcoin, and now the SUSU savings plans that's saturating our communities?
I see the look on your face.
No, again, it goes back to it. It depends on where you are in your financial strategy right now, right? I won't ever say that anything is bad or not endorse anything or knock anything, because it really does depend. Just like when you were saying about debt earlier, if you go and get $100,000 loan, if you're getting that loan to just piddle it away, then that's one thing. But if you're getting that loan to start a business, or if you're getting that loan to go to school, it's a different story. That's more so as an investment into your future, which will get you the return that you want it to get.
Okay.
So I don't have a straight opinion on it because I don't really delve in it too much, but I would never say that it's not a good idea to do it or look into it for certain people.
Okay. So
and then, can I put my 7 and 10-year-old daughters on my credit card to build up their credit?
Absolutely, yes. They have children. They actually have a way for certain banks to add children to your line of credit or your debit card, so that it does that exact thing. It'll build their credit, starting an LLC in their name or whatever. It could. There's ways so that your child can be set up, and that is definitely one of them.
which leads me to
What's an LLC? That was a literal question.
Yeah, no, it's a limited liability company, so it's a type of business that people would set up.
so you got C Corp, you got S Corp, you got DBA, you got LLC. There's all different types. They have different tax breaks, different law situations.
Exactly.
Of that nature.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the most important number in America. The number that I found out about when I was 20, and it was low like a temperature in the winter. It was terrible. I didn't learn that there was a credit score until I was 20 years old. And in America, we love to say cash is king, but credit owns the kingdom.
Yeah.
And I just learned about credit on YouTube on a 3-step economic, how the economy works in America. It was like a 15-minute cartoon video that I think every human being should watch. And when I remember it, Grace, so we're going to post it tomorrow, but it talks about how money works. It talks about inflation, deflation. It talks about what's it called when you stimulation, how the economy gets stimulated and jobs and stuff like that. All based in credit. Is what it's based in.
Yeah.
What is the credit score?
The credit score is it's a system that basically will, depending on different categories, so how much debt a person has, how long their history of having a credit card or credit is, how much debt they have. It has all of these factors, and they give you a number depending on how quote unquote responsible you've been in these different categories.
And those numbers range from 400 to 850.
Yes.
What's a fair score if I needed to get a decent, if I needed to borrow some money? What's a fair score to give me a chance to get to the elusive gentleman or lady that I've never known the name of that we call the underwriter? We'll talk about him in a second. So what is a score that'll get us in the game, that'll get us to the play?
Yeah, so I think right now it's 620.
What do you mean right now?
Prior to the pandemic, credit scores to get,
650,
yeah, so I think it was a little, it was easier prior to the pandemic to get access to credit. And like you were just saying, Greg, it all works together. So when people talk about going through a depression, an economic depression or economic downturn, that means that money is tightening. So banks are less likely to lend out money. So we need to tighten up the economy so that people can start to maybe spend what they
have.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And so to stimulate the economy more, and then once that gets stimulated, then they'll start lowering the rates again, and so that people can start borrowing and all of that.
That's exactly what was on the video.
Yeah.
It's so funny you say that.
So
What's a great score?
oh, great score is probably anything over 700.
Anything over 700. Okay. What's a terrible score?
Oof.
Anything below?
550 below,
Yeah,
575,
I think it's
500.
575. So
Yeah.
how do you stay out of that range? From my understanding, you pay your bills on time and you'll always be over 600. If your debt to income ratio.
Yeah.
But that doesn't. But I mean, if you just pay your bills on time, you can stay over 600, and it gives you a chance to maybe move. Like if you get your credit cards paid down, now you have credit. It's called credit utilization. So, credit cards, I've learned. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. Can be an amazing thing. Credit cards actually increase your credit score after they do a hard pull, which I want you to explain what that is. Your score goes down about 5 or 6 points. And the moment you get approved and the credit goes up maybe $1,000, $5,000, your score can shoot up anywhere between 5 to 15 points depending on how much credit you now have available versus your utilization.
Yes. Can I give a shout out?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm not a credit expert, but I work with Streams Financial. They are financial services. And one of the individuals there, main individuals, Leonard Brown, he does great credit repair and great credit service. So if you guys have any questions, following up from this discussion, he's a great resource.
So we're talking about credit repair, credit structure, and all.
Yeah, exactly.
And you said
Streams Financial.
Great. So drop that on
streamsfinancial.com. They have a great website.
Okay. And Leonard
Brown.
Mr. Brown will be able to help you in your financial situation.
Yes.
I really think all of our people need to understand how credit works because that's how big businesses move.
Yes.
They don't move with liquid dollars.
Exactly.
They move on credit. They borrow against the money they have or the assets they have, or the relationships they have is what they borrow against.
Yeah.
So with that being said, how do we find out our credit score? Nowadays, you can literally type your name in and find out your credit score moment to moment. You remember you only knew your credit score when you went and applied for something that was credit. So how do we max this so we can increase our spending ability and our investment ability?
Yes, so there is a website, I believe it's still around, it's freecreditreport.com, where you get a free credit report each year. And it has the the Experian, TransUnion, and the other Equifax. Those three, and because they each use different metrics, so getting all three will give you a good picture of what your financial situation is, your credit. And then also, if you do have a credit card, like through Bank of America or Wells Fargo, any of the main banking institutions, they usually provide you with a credit report for free as well.
Okay.
What are some of the different ways you can use an insurance policy as a financial vehicle?
Oh, I love this question. That's my favorite question. Yes. So just breaking down, first and foremost, the types of life insurance, right? Because Greg, you mentioned term insurance. So term is just, you get it for that period and that's it.
Step back for a second.
Yeah.
Let's go to 5th grade. What are we talking about life insurance? What's the purpose of life insurance?
Yeah, so just like you get insurance on your car, your house, whatever, it's insurance on your life. So if you die prematurely or maturely, then the life insurance company will pay out that death benefit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about the different kinds of life insurance.
Yes, so there is 2 categories, term life insurance and permanent life insurance.
Is it called whole or permanent?
So permanent.
Okay.
So under the category of permanent insurance, there are several different types. There is whole life. There is index universal life.
Hold on now.
Yeah.
Okay, we got whole life.
Whole life.
And these 3 words you just said that sounded very important. Index universal.
Index universal life.
Okay. And then what else we got?
Variable universal life. And fixed universal life.
Which one makes the most sense? okay, for a situation for a young person getting life insurance who is healthy and they can get a very good rate, which one would you?
Probably whole life or index universal life, depending on what they're looking for.
What about a 40-year-old business owner who has a lot of his assets tied into the business, and his net worth is that net has a big hole in it, but he has insurance. He has life insurance. What kind would you recommend for him?
Probably index universal life, an IUL. Yeah.
Right on.
And then you have a question that says, what are your thoughts about pulling money, because it goes with this, pulling money from a 401k and putting it into a variable / universal life policy?
That question too, yes.
We're in your wheelhouse now.
So, I would not recommend pulling money from a retirement investment to putting it into a life insurance for everyone. It could work on occasion, but this is the reason why. Because when you put money into your 401k, that's your retirement, right? You're putting money in there, and you know that if ever you stopped contributing to that, your money's going to be there, no matter what. If you then divert those funds to a life insurance policy, remember, a life insurance policy at its core is life insurance. So the money you put in, there's going to be a portion of that that's going to go to pay for that life insurance. And then whatever's left over will go into what we call the cash value, right? When we're talking about whole life or index universal life. If that policy isn't funded appropriately because of lack of knowledge or whatnot, which I see often, unfortunately, we have some agents out there that are just product pushers.
I got cheated out of an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Somebody told me one thing, signed me up for another one,
Right.
and then $12,000 later, it was $0.
Exactly. So education is important, and working with a trusted individual is really important. And so the moment you take it out of that and to put it into something, and you don't fund it like it was scheduled to, or it doesn't go as planned, or you weren't educated on it entirely, that goes away, right? And so I can't, with good consciousness, recommend someone stop their guaranteed investment and move it over to something that, if they're not well versed on to it. Now, with that said, there are people that the strategy does work for, to stop funding their 401k and then to fund their life insurance policy appropriately. So generally, I don't recommend it, but again, looking at your situation, it could be an option, if that makes sense.
Do you have to, so how do you make the life insurance stuff work for you before you die?
Great question. And so with the permanent life insurance, that side of the business comes with what we call cash value in the life policies. So as you're putting money in, you're what we call overfunding your policy. You're not just funding it to the minimum, because the minimum is just going to get you that insurance and not necessarily fund it to fund that cash value, that other side of the policy. But once you get enough money in there to have the cash value, you then have access to that pool of money. So it's like a side. I don't want to call it an investment because, again,
right.
I can't call it that.
That's not the right
Technically.
term, and I know exactly what you mean.
But you have access to that pool of money in the future.
So let me ask some just basic questions. You don't have to have a lot of money to have a quality net worth, correct?
Yep.
You don't have to make a lot of money to live a quality life. What do you have to do? What is the balance of not letting finances stress your life? Like what? Because once you budgeting is a part of a setup for what the expectation is.
Yeah.
But nobody expected furloughs and layoffs and so you can't budget for the unexpected. You can budget for miscellaneous unknowns, but you can't budget for something like this. So how do you sustain a way to live in a manner that not necessarily comfortable, but not so uncomfortable that every moment it brings so much stress?
Yeah.
I'm asking that to say, like, is it investing something? Is it like owning, like having ownership in something, or having your credit in a way where you can utilize that to get that extra 10% of spending that you need? You know, explain that to
I think
how do we find that balance so our kids aren't working for 40 years for maybe $80 more, but they're still in the same financial boat?
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's like you said, it's a combination of all of that, but making sure that you find those multiple streams of income, right? It's not just, you know, the 9 to 5 or, you know, whatnot. We see a lot of, you know, people in this quarantine time, right, coming up with different, what they're calling side hustles, and you know, different ways to make money. And I think that is realistically the future. They said the average millionaire has six streams of income.
But he might owe $2 million. So what I'm asking, what I'm asking is, when we make that money, okay, so let's say I'm DoorDash, right? And I make $600 DoorDash, and I don't have nowhere to put that $600.
Oh, so what investments?
What can I do to when that $600 is $800, $1,200? So whenever I look up, I got $15,000, and now a pandemic breaks out. Like where can I put that money so that money grows, or
Gotcha.
well, I'm not taking it out of my pocket and handing it over for something that it's not useful, but I can take that and put it in a position where I ain't stressed out over the next 3 or. How do I build that 6 month buffer?
Yeah,
because you can't build it with that same. But it's, in my opinion, you tell me, it's hard to juggle if you're already starting $1 below. It's kind of hard to juggle if you haven't made a new dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do I do with those new dollars that I made?
Yeah, I think you brought it up before, like looking at different investment vehicles, whether that's life insurance and cash value, or that's going into the stock market, investing in securities.
What is a security?
A security is it's the stock market. So
let's take a step.
Is it like the Robinhood app?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Robinhood app. Exactly.
Acorns.
I was going to say, what's the difference between that and Acorns?
So there really isn't a difference per se, as far as, I think it's just a matter of how your money is being collected. Robinhood's a little bit more proactive. You can choose what stocks you want to buy, versus Acorns, we're going to take, you know, what is it? We'll take this amount out of your bank account every week or month or whatever, and then we'll put it into this for you.
Got it. Okay. So what's a define investment? Because you invest in, like when people pay for us, they're investing in the return of quality testing, being a starter, building confidence, and if they don't get that, they put the money and they stop spending, but they don't get the money back. So when we hear investment, most people who aren't risk takers or not business owners, or who don't have an understanding that banks sell money, we don't really understand the term investment. So we define that as holistically as possible.
Yeah, so I define investment when you take a resource and you put it into, or you utilize that resource with the goal in mind of that resource expanding, right? So you can even take it, for example, people go to college, you borrow money. You get into debt for that degree with the expectation that that degree is going to put you in a career field that's going to more than compensate for that debt you took out to go to school. So I think in its simplest terms, you know, investment can be, again, a resource that you take with the mindset of expanding or using that resource for your benefit to increase in the future.
Love that. So what's the most important weapon to bring to the fight if we are in it for the long haul, to not be broke, to have a positive network, to be worth $1 when you die? You know what? So to me, it's your credit score. It really is, because now you have so many options. Because with bad credit, you have 0 options.
Right.
0. Or you run in sharks, or you run in a hard money limit, or you run like. But with decent credit, it expands your options to make your credit better. And I think us as just a people, and I'm not afraid to say this, we should collectively work with people we trust, pool some resources, and start purchasing land and business, you know, where PE is, and you know, those business areas or whatnot. If we start purchasing those things with the money that the banks sell, that's how businesses roll.
Exactly.
And then that way we can pass these things down, and they're in the family. Then there's your investment. Now you have a life insurance policy. Now you have a quality budget. Now you have a quality credit score, and you own something. And you don't have to be a millionaire to do that, but you can live like a millionaire because you don't owe nobody nothing. How do you do that?
I was not expecting that.
But what would be a first step? Let's say you're, because you have Marquise Day is your husband, excellent guy, great trainer, but he is not afraid to. He's a small business owner. He's not afraid to go out there and be aggressive in attacking a business opportunity. But he has you as a voice of economic reason.
Yeah.
You know, now me, I'm a wild man. If I like it, I find out as much as I can about it, and then I say, oh, I'll figure out the rest. I'll go make the rest. So, how do you balance that in a manner to where you can take that risk, feel good about it, not have millions of dollars in the bank, but know you're setting up a quality future for your baby girl? How old is your baby girl now?
She'll be 3 in November.
You're setting up a quality future for your baby girl, Skylar, and you feel confident about it, and you're willing to go through a pandemic and still build a business on what steps did you guys take? That's a better question.
Yeah, no, that is a great question. I think, you know, with our situation, I don't think it's unique for a lot of couples, in that, you know, we made a decision early on that he wasn't happy in a 9-to-5 setting. That's just who he was, and I knew that when I married him. And to figure out what worked best for us in our situation, and you know, he needs to be an entrepreneur. That's who he is in his spirit.
Shout out to Marquis Day.
And so, just you know, having the conversation of, okay, well, if this is our 5-year plan. You're going to go and do what you need to do to build your business, and we're going to put all of the resources in making sure that this is a success. There's no turning back. I mean, at a certain point,
you gotta go.
Yeah, you just have to take the risk. What I say, take an educated risk. Don't just go out there and do it, but, you know, make sure, you know, he brought me, you know, this is what I need to do for the certifications. This is what we need to do for this step. This is how I'll build my clientele, and just having a plan to that, and then, you know, balancing that with me doing the 9-to-5 and making sure that, you know, until he's able to build up his business, get that going, then we'll transition into the next 5-year plan. And so that's, you know, again, it's about making that educated risk. And so if you are a risk taker, if you feel that that is your nature and who you are, just making sure that, you know, you're not going to just undertake underwater basket weaving just because you like it, but how are you going to make a career out of that? What's your business plan to really, exactly.
God, I love that. So when you're moving in these directions, because I think that we have to make a whole lot of money to be happy. Now, realizing that if you keep the money you make, you don't have to worry about being sad. I just learned that like 3 years ago. So I guess what I'm saying is, what's a good initial first step for somebody who's listening, going, okay, I got this much debt, I make this much money, I don't see an end in sight. I don't really know how to max this. I gotta go take a few extra jobs, but every time I do, I spend the money on the jobs that I'm taking. How do I get to a water level to where that, because everybody just wants that $1, and then what they do with that, hey man, that's your bad or your good. But how do you start? No matter where you are, what would be the first step to take? So if I were given a first step, I would literally go look for that YouTube video. It's like 15 minutes long, and it explains the economics of America in 15 minutes. And it's a cartoon. I mean, it's the best thing I've ever seen. That would be what I would say. What, with your background, your experience, your knowledge, and the success you guys are having, from my understanding, Marquise is doing Airbnb right now, and one of the hardest times in the world to have an Airbnb. He's building that so whenever it opens up, it's going to be able to thrive. But you guys have a real understanding of how that plan works, what money to pull back, when not to do these things. Some of it is just educated guesses.
Exactly.
So again, Desiree, what would you say to that person that's like, I'm fed up with this?
Mm-hmm.
Or that 18-year-old like, man, I really want that credit card and I have $0, but I have zero debt. What's the first step they can take?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm in line with, always getting educated on your decisions or your choices that you're thinking about making. So to that 18-year-old, get educated about what you're really on. Taking credit cards can be great if you pay them off every month and build that credit. It's important to have for that credit score, but can you practice that self-restraint? But I think to your point, getting educated for me is key. And I think for me, because I mean, we weren't always, here where we are right now.
Right.
There had to be a starting point. We were 25 when we got married, and it was a struggle to transition. I was scared to death for us to transition one into an entrepreneurial way. But for us, it was, again, that educated risk. So making sure that we understood, okay, we have this much coming in, that much going out. We know we're going to need this much in order to make this work. How do we scale back? How do we, do we need to live without cable for 6 months? That's fine. Let's do it. So taking a realistic look at your financial picture and figuring out what are those needs and what are those wants, and going from there.
So you have 3 categories. I need this, I like this, I want this.
I want this, yeah.
Okay, so that's a great start. So step 1 is this is what I need, this is what I like, this is what I want. Step 2 is how does this work? And we live in the information age. So if I wanted to get a credit card, I listen to credit card Johnny say, pay you got 0 interest for the first year, just pay your minimums, and then you go, how does that actually work? What is 0 interest? So take a day, 2 days, maybe a week, like a realistic look at an overview, and then ask questions.
Exactly.
Now, after that, go buy some land. Let's go pool some money. Let's go buy some land. Let's go build some businesses, things of that nature, because you don't have to be a millionaire to do that. Any questions before we have to get out of here, Grace?
I don't have any recent ones. Nope, just agreeances on having multiple streams of income and comments on how, like Miss Sherry said, she built her children's credit by putting both of them on as authorized users in 9th grade, and then they graduated college with a 740 plus with 5.
So Miss Sherry, you tell everybody on this deal. I wish I'd known that. Shoot, I tell my mama. Listen, you put them all on the credit cards y'all plan to pay, and then let's make sure we build that credit. That's the most important score. It's more important than the SAT, the ACT, the ASVAB, the bar. That's the most important test. Number you ever gonna have. What would you like to leave the people with? What information do they have to, before we do that, before you leave the people, okay, I want to talk about, there is a gentleman, Jonathan Fisher at Merrill Lynch.
Yes.
Who is that gentleman?
So Jonathan Fisher is a really good family friend, and I'd like to think, he's grown, his business has grown expansively in the financial services industry. So if you are interested in learning about the different, like I mentioned before, securities, so stocks, mutual funds, all of that, I would recommend reaching out to him.
Type that in there for us, Grace. So
Does he have any Facebook pages or anything like that? Or a business page?
He has his Instagram.
Jonathan Fisher at Merrill Lynch. So you'll be looking for Jonathan Fisher on Instagram. And then Stream Financials, what we discussed earlier.
Is it John as in John, or is it Jona? Like Nathan?
I think it's John, Jona. Yeah.
So with that, what would you like to leave the people with?
Yeah, so I think with all of this, there's a lot of overwhelming information out there. It's very expansive when people talk about financial literacy, and it's a very intimidating term, but I want people to know that it's not as hard as it seems. Again, take it for someone that failed econ twice. I would have never imagined that I would have been in this, type of industry at all. It's, there's a reason why, there's different vehicles and everything and ways to understand this business. So I just encourage you to educate yourself and really lean into it. Don't be intimidated by it.
Where do we find you, and how can people find you so you can help them? What do we do? How do you help people?
So I actually don't work directly with people,
Okay.
but you can always find me on Instagram,
Okay.
insta.des,
Gotcha.
and then also email. I have my contact information on the National Life Group website.
Okay.
If you go to the website, you will be able to find me and my picture and my information.
Grace, so you got anything before we got to get out of here?
No, good.
Hey, I am extremely excited to have you. We will have you back, and we're going to spend an hour talking about life insurance policies, the best way to go about it. Hey, listen, if you guys aren't interested in learning anything, then I don't know how we can help you, but I also understand how important it is to listen to the entire story, get as much information as you can, and come up with a resolution that makes sense. I appreciate you all listening. If we're going to do anything, let's do something for these kiddos. We will see you next Monday. Grace, so turn around and look at that clock.
Wow.